probably the biggest one I'm facing, and I'm sure you and most visionaries are, is impatience.
Right.
We're desperate. Come on now, how long? And when's this going to end? And when can we just get back to what we want to do? And come on, when can I get on the road? And when can we gather? And I think impatience is a subtle thing, because we like to think it's a God thing that He's given us to have this righteous indignation rise up. But actually, it's often our frustration of our flesh just wanting things to happen.
Right.
And so I think the best remedy, if I can be honest, is actually prayer. I find myself often frustrated in this season. And come on, Lord, and I feel like, what are we doing? And then I've gone back to God, and not praying for breakthrough and praying for coronavirus to go, just praying and connecting with God. And I think that's what prayer does. Prayer actually puts us back on the timetable of God. It gets us back in partnership with God. And what are you doing in this season, God? Not, God, I need you to do this. No, God, what are you doing? And even getting back to the timetable of God, which is so vital, guys. If God allowed this, then there's a reason in it. And I'm sure we've got to be praying our way through this and praying against the virus. But in it, we're saying, God, what's your timetable? What are you doing? What do you want me to learn? Why are we kind of facing some of these things? Not at a question of desperation, but learning from God, partnering with God, so we can be more effective in the season. So I said, going back to God, there's three answers from God when we pray. Number one is no. Number two is yes, and those two are no-brainers. When you pray and He says no, okay, you know.
Right.
When you pray and He says yes, well, then you know. But there's a third, wait.
Yeah.
And that's probably the most difficult.
Not yet. Yeah.
And you're like, okay, no and yes I get, but wait. And that's what this thing is about, going back to God. We're forced to move on His timetable, get back to Him. And I think we find our frustrations less fleshy and more what God's doing, and actually finding, okay, I see that. I'm not kind of hanging back. I'm still going to, as we said earlier, I'm not being passive, but I'm back on your timetable. Because impatience, we can frustrate things. We can give off our frustrations to people who never had them. Now they've got them. And I think impatience is probably a thing we like to think is godly, but it's actually not. If we go back to God's timing and understanding. And so we need to get His perspective. When you pray, you get the perspective of God. We go back to Him and we see things from His perspective. It opens our spiritual eyes, positions us, and aligns our hearts with His, which I think is awesome. And also helps us proceed, understand how to go forward, rather than we're just going to kick every door down. As we said, prayer engages God, it enables God's people, but it also extends and enlarges His kingdom. And that's why I think prayer is so key for this thing. And so the subtle enemy in this, the unseen enemy is impatience, but actually go back to God and say, okay, Lord, what are you saying?